I watched in horror as my best friend posted her baby shower invitation featuring the exact name I had secretly treasured for over a decade. She had stolen my most precious dream. But what I did next changed everything forever. The notification appeared on my phone at exactly 3:17 in the afternoon on a Tuesday that would forever change my understanding of friendship, trust, and the power of a single word. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, the one with the mismatched vintage chairs and the barista who always remembered my order, scrolling through social media while waiting for my prenatal appointment. The familiar pink heart notification indicated that someone had tagged me in a post, and I clicked on it without thinking, expecting to see another generic pregnancy congratulations, or perhaps a funny meme about morning sickness. Instead, I found myself staring at an elaborate baby shower invitation that made my blood run cold, and my heart stopped beating for what felt like an eternity. The invitation was beautifully designed with soft pink watercolor flowers, delicate gold script, and all the elegant touches that Pinterest dreams are made of. But it was not the aesthetic beauty of the invitation that caused my world to crumble in that moment. It was the name written in flowing calligraphy across the center of the image, the name that had lived in my heart and dreams for over 10 years, the name that I had whispered to myself countless times while imagining the daughter I would someday hold in my arms. Elowyn Grace. My name. My precious, carefully chosen, deeply meaningful name that I had carried with me since I was 16 years old, and first discovered it in a book about Celtic mythology during a lonely afternoon in my high school library. The name that meant elm tree in ancient Cornish, symbolizing strength, resilience, and deep roots that could weather any storm. The name that I had researched extensively, learning about its origins, its pronunciation, its beautiful meaning that seemed to capture everything I hoped my future daughter would embody. The invitation was posted by Brianna, my best friend since college, my maid of honor, the woman who had held my hair back during too many nights of questionable decisions, who had celebrated every milestone and heartbreak with me, who had been the first person I called when I got engaged, and who had been one of the first people I told when I discovered I was pregnant. Brianna, who was also pregnant, just a few weeks ahead of me in her pregnancy journey, and who had been sharing this magical time of expecting our first children together. Brianna, who had somehow taken the name that I had confided to her in a moment of pure trust and excitement, and had claimed it as her own. I sat in that coffee shop, staring at my phone screen with trembling hands, reading and rereading the invitation as if somehow the letters would rearrange themselves into something different, something that did not feel like a knife being twisted in my chest. The invitation announced a baby shower for baby Elowyn Grace, scheduled for the following month, complete with registry information and RSVP details. It was beautiful, professional, and absolutely devastating. My mind immediately flashed back to the conversation we had shared just 3 weeks earlier, when we had met for lunch at our favorite little bistro to discuss our pregnancies, our fears, our excitement, and our dreams for our daughters. I remembered the moment so clearly, the way the afternoon sunlight had streamed through the restaurant windows, the way Brianna had leaned forward with genuine interest when I began talking about names. I have had the perfect name picked out since I was in high school, I had told her, my voice filled with the kind of excitement that only comes from sharing something deeply personal and precious. I have never told anyone this, not even my husband until recently, but I have always known that if I had a daughter, I would name her Elowyn. It is a Cornish name that means elm tree, and there is something so beautiful about that meaning. Trees are strong, they have deep roots, they weather storms and still grow toward the light. I had watched Brianna's face light up with what I thought was genuine enthusiasm and support. She had asked me to spell it, to tell her more about its origins, to share why it meant so much to me. I had opened my heart completely, explaining how I had discovered the name during a difficult time in my teenage years, how it had become a symbol of the future I was working toward, how I had always imagined calling my daughter by that beautiful name. "That is absolutely gorgeous," Brianna had said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Elowyn is such a unique and meaningful choice. She is going to love having such a special name with such a beautiful story behind it." Now, staring at her baby shower invitation, I realized that her enthusiasm had not been supportive excitement for my choice. It had been something else entirely. She had been taking notes, memorizing details, and apparently planning to claim my name as her own inspiration. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, sharp and immediate and completely unexpected. This was not just about a name, although the name itself was incredibly important to me. This was about trust, about friendship, about the sacred space that exists between people who care about each other enough to share their deepest hopes and dreams. I had given her a piece of my heart, and she had taken it and claimed it as her own. I sat in that coffee shop for nearly an hour, staring at the invitation and trying to process what had happened and what it meant for our friendship, for my pregnancy, and for the name I had carried in my heart for so long. Other customers came and went, the barista wiped down tables and made drinks. Life continued around me, but I felt completely frozen in time, unable to move forward or backward from this moment of devastating realization. My first instinct was to call her immediately, to demand an explanation, to ask how she could have done something so hurtful and thoughtless. I wanted to remind her of our conversation, to make her understand how much this name meant to me, to ask her to reconsider her choice and pick something else for her daughter. But even as these thoughts ran through my mind, I knew that confronting her would not change anything. The invitation had already been posted, shared with dozens of mutual friends and family members. The name had been claimed, publicly and definitively. My second instinct was to use the name anyway, to refuse to let her theft diminish my own plans and dreams. After all, it was not as if she owned the name legally or had any more right to it than I did. But the thought of our daughters growing up with the same name, of family gatherings and social events where people would inevitably compare them and ask awkward questions about the coincidence, made me feel sick to my stomach. More than that, the name had been tainted for me now. Every time I would say it, I would remember this moment, this betrayal, this feeling of having something precious stolen from me. When I finally left the coffee shop and drove to my prenatal appointment, I was still in a state of emotional shock. My doctor immediately noticed that something was wrong, asking if I was feeling okay, if there had been any concerning symptoms or changes since my last visit. I found myself explaining the situation to her, this kind and understanding woman who had been caring for me throughout my pregnancy, and I was surprised by how much it helped to say the words out loud to someone who had no connection to the drama. "That must be incredibly hurtful," she said gently. "But you know, sometimes these kinds of experiences push us towards something even better than what we originally planned. Maybe this is the universe telling you that your daughter needs a different name, something that is truly and completely yours." Her words stayed with me as I drove home, and I began to think about the possibility that maybe this devastating betrayal could somehow become an opportunity. Maybe I could find a name that was even more perfect, even more meaningful, even more special than the one that had been taken from me. That evening, I told my husband David about what had happened. He was furious, more angry than I had ever seen him, and he immediately wanted to call Brianna and demand that she change her choice. But I stopped him, explaining that I did not want to fight over a name, that I did not want our daughter's name to be associated with conflict and drama and hurt feelings. "Besides," I said, surprising myself with the determination in my voice, "I am not someone who settles for hand-me-downs or stolen goods. If she wants that name so badly that she was willing to betray our friendship to get it, she can have it. I am going to find something better." And so began the most intensive name search of my life. I spent hours every day researching names, diving deep into etymology and meaning and cultural significance. I read baby name books, scoured international name databases, explored mythology and literature and astronomy for inspiration. I was determined to find a name that was not just beautiful, but truly extraordinary, something that would make people stop and take notice, something that would be worthy of the daughter I was carrying. I considered dozens of possibilities, making lists and crossing out options, saying names out loud to see how they felt in my mouth, imagining how they would sound when called across a playground or announced at a graduation ceremony. I wanted something that was both modern and timeless, unique but not difficult to pronounce, meaningful but not pretentious. And then, during one late-night research session when I was about 6 months pregnant, I found it. Lyra. The name appeared on my computer screen like a gift from the universe, and I knew immediately that this was the name I had been searching for. Lyra, the constellation that represents the lyre of Orpheus in Greek mythology, the harp that could charm all living things with its beautiful music. Lyra, a name that was both celestial and musical, both ancient and completely contemporary. I spent the rest of that night researching everything I could about the name Lyra. I learned about the constellation itself, a small but prominent grouping of stars that includes Vega, one of the brightest stars in the northern sky. I learned about the mythological significance of the lyre, the instrument that could move stones and trees, tame wild beasts, and even soften the hearts of the gods. I learned that the name had been used occasionally throughout history, but had never become common or trendy, making it truly unique without being completely unheard of. Most importantly, I learned that the name felt absolutely perfect for my daughter. It was strong and beautiful and musical, just like I hoped she would be. It had depth and meaning and story, just like the name I had originally chosen, but it was completely and entirely mine. No one could take this name from me because no one else knew about it, and more than that, no one else had discovered it the way I had, through my own research and intuition and love. When I told David about my choice, he immediately loved it as much as I did. We spent hours talking about middle name options, eventually settling on Lyra Noel, combining the celestial beauty of her first name with the Christmas significance of her middle name. Since she was due in December, the rest of my pregnancy was filled with excitement about our name choice, and I found that I no longer felt any sadness or anger about what Brianna had done. I was too busy falling in love with the name Lyra, and imagining the incredible person who would carry it through life. When friends and family asked about our name choice, I would smile and say that we were keeping it a surprise, but privately I felt a thrill of anticipation knowing that we had chosen something truly special. Lyra Noel was born on December 15th. A beautiful and healthy baby girl with bright eyes and a strong cry that seemed to announce her presence to the world with confidence and joy. From the moment the nurse placed her in my arms and I whispered her name for the first time, I knew that everything had worked out exactly as it was supposed to. This was her name, the name she was meant to have, and I could not imagine her being called anything else. 3 weeks later, Brianna gave birth to her daughter, and I saw the announcement on social media just like everyone else. Baby Elowen Grace had arrived, and she was beautiful and perfect and loved. I felt no jealousy or sadness when I saw the announcement, only a distant sort of relief that the drama was behind us, and we could both focus on being mothers to our daughters. But what happened next was something I could never have predicted or planned. When Lyra was about 2 months old, I started a blog called Raising Lyra, as a way to document our journey through new motherhood, and to share some of the challenges and joys I was experiencing. I had always enjoyed writing, and I thought it might be therapeutic to have a creative outlet during those long days and nights of caring for a newborn. The blog started small, with just a few posts about sleepless nights and diaper disasters, and the overwhelming love I felt for my tiny daughter. But something about my writing style, or perhaps something about Lyra's name, seemed to resonate with readers. The blog began to gain followers slowly at first, then more rapidly as people shared my posts and recommended the blog to their friends. Within 6 months, Raising Lyra had thousands of regular readers and had been featured on several popular parenting websites. People loved the honest, humorous way I wrote about motherhood, but they also seemed fascinated by Lyra's name. I received dozens of comments and messages asking about the name, where I had found it, what it meant, how I had chosen it. As the blog grew more popular, I began to notice something interesting happening. Other bloggers and social media influencers started using the name Lyra for their own daughters, or featuring it in posts about unique baby names. Pinterest boards dedicated to celestial baby names began featuring Lyra prominently. Baby name websites started including Lyra in their lists of trending names and names to watch. The name that I had discovered during my desperate search for something better than what had been stolen from me was becoming a phenomenon. By the time Lyra turned 1, her name was appearing on baby name trend lists and being discussed on popular parenting podcasts. Influencers with millions of followers were posting about how much they loved the name Lyra, and how they wished they had thought of it for their own daughters. The name was being featured in nursery design posts, in baby announcement ideas, and in countless social media posts about beautiful and unique names. I watched this phenomenon unfold with a mixture of amazement and satisfaction. The name I had chosen out of heartbreak and determination had somehow captured the imagination of parents across the country and beyond. Lyra was no longer just my daughter's name. It had become a symbol of the kind of thoughtful, meaningful naming that modern parents were seeking. Meanwhile, the name that had been stolen from me seemed to fade into the background of the baby name world. Aloan, while still a lovely name, never gained the same kind of cultural momentum that Lyra achieved. It remained a beautiful but relatively uncommon choice, used by a small number of parents who appreciated its Celtic origins and natural meaning. The irony of the situation was not lost on me. Brianna had stolen what she thought was the perfect name, the name that would make her daughter special and unique. But by taking that name, she had unknowingly pushed me toward discovering something even better. Something that would not only make my daughter special, but would also influence naming trends for years to come. About 18 months after our daughters were born, I received a direct message from Brianna on social media. It was the first communication we had had since the name theft incident, and I was curious to see what she wanted to say after all this time. "Hey girl," the message began. "I hope you and Lyra are doing well. I have been following your blog and I am so impressed by how successful it has become. I wanted to ask you something. Where did you come up with the name Lyra? It is so unique and beautiful, and I have been seeing it everywhere lately. I wish I had thought of something like that for Eloan. She is actually going by Ellie now because there are so many other Eloans in her playgroup in preschool. Anyway, I hope we can catch up soon. Miss you." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. There was some satisfaction in seeing that she recognized how special Lyra's name had become, and there was definitely irony in the fact that her stolen name had become so common that her daughter had to use a nickname to distinguish herself from the other girls with similar names. But mostly, I felt a sense of closure and peace. The hurt and betrayal I had felt during those early months of pregnancy had been transformed into something positive and powerful. The name theft that had seemed so devastating at the time had actually been a blessing in disguise, pushing me to find something better than I had ever imagined possible. I chose not to respond to Brianna's message, not out of anger or spite, but because I realized that chapter of my life was closed. The friendship we had shared was part of my past, and my focus now was on the future I was building with my daughter, whose name had become a symbol of resilience, creativity, and the power of turning setbacks into opportunities. As I write this story, Lyra is now 3 years old, a bright and curious little girl who lives up to the celestial beauty of her name in every way. She is confident and creative, strong-willed and gentle, everything I hoped she would be when I first whispered her name in that hospital room. Her name continues to trend on social media and baby name websites, and I regularly receive messages from parents who chose the name Lyra for their own daughters after discovering it through my blog, or through the cultural phenomenon it has become. The name that was born from heartbreak has become a legacy of hope and inspiration. Every time I hear another parent call their daughter Lyra at the playground, every time I see the name featured in a magazine article about beautiful baby names, every time someone comments on how perfect and unique my daughter's name is, I am reminded of the journey that brought us to this point. Brianna may have stolen the name I thought I wanted, but in doing so, she unknowingly gave me something much more valuable. She gave me the opportunity to discover that I was capable of finding something better, something that was truly and completely mine, something that would make a lasting impact on the world. The experience taught me that sometimes the worst betrayals can lead to the greatest triumphs. Sometimes having something taken from us forces us to dig deeper, reach higher, and discover capabilities we never knew we possessed. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a beginning in disguise. Most importantly, I learned that authenticity cannot be stolen. Brianna could take the name I had shared with her, but she could not take my creativity, my resilience, or my ability to find something even better. The name Lyra came from my own research, my own intuition, my own journey through disappointment to discovery. It was mine in a way that Aloha never could have been after it was taken from me. Now, when I watch Lyra play with her friends, when I see her confidence and creativity, when I witness the way she approaches the world with curiosity and courage, I know that she is living up to the strength and beauty of her name. She is my constellation, my music, my reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the darkest moments. The blog that started as a simple documentation of our journey has grown into a platform that reaches hundreds of thousands of parents around the world. Raising Lyra has become more than just a parenting blog. It has become a resource for parents who want to raise confident, creative, and authentic children. The success of the blog has led to book deals, speaking engagements, and partnerships with brands that align with my values of thoughtful parenting and authentic living. But the greatest success is not measured in followers or revenue or recognition. The greatest success is the little girl who carries the name that was born from my determination to find something better than what was taken from me. Lyra is proof that sometimes the universe knows what it is doing, even when we cannot see the bigger picture in the moment of crisis. When friends ask me about the name theft incident now, I tell them that it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though it did not feel that way at the time. It taught me that I am stronger and more creative than I ever knew, that I do not have to settle for what others think I deserve, and that sometimes the most devastating setbacks can become the foundation for the greatest victories. The name Lyra has become more than just what I call my daughter. It has become a symbol of resilience, creativity, and the power of authenticity. It represents the idea that we all have the ability to create something beautiful and meaningful, even when we feel like everything has been taken from us. Every time someone compliments my daughter's name, every time another parent chooses Lyra for their own child, every time the name appears in a trending baby name list, I am reminded of the journey that brought us here. A journey that began with betrayal and heartbreak, but led to something more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. Brianna stole my baby name, but in doing so, she gave me the opportunity to create something legendary. She took what she thought was the perfect choice, but she pushed me to find something that would become a cultural phenomenon. She thought she was claiming the best name for her daughter, but she actually cleared the path for me to discover a name that would influence naming trends for years to come. And now, every time I hear another parent call their daughter Lyra, every time I see the name trending on social media, every time someone asks me about the beautiful and unique name I chose for my daughter, I smile and remember that sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. Sometimes the best response to betrayal is to create something so beautiful and meaningful that it makes the original theft completely irrelevant. My daughter carries a name that has become a part of popular culture, a name that represents the power of perseverance and the beauty of authenticity. She carries a name that came from love, determination, and the refusal to settle for anything less than extraordinary. That is a legacy worth much more than any name that could be stolen, and it is a gift that will last her entire lifetime. If this story inspired you to believe in your own strength and creativity, if it reminded you that setbacks can become setups for something better, or if it encouraged you to never settle for less than you deserve, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that celebrate resilience, authenticity, and the power of turning challenges into triumphs. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of people who believe that the best response to betrayal is to create something unforgettable.